Hi everyone, my name is Mary Rains and this is my data analysis of the case study. To start out with a summary of the case. Who was involved? We know that Mr. Rhodes is the first year principal that's involved in this case. Dr. Newman is the superintendent of the district. The students that were identified are Karen, Tyrone, Christina, Carl, and John. I also included the athletic director, counselor, and teachers because they were all named throughout the case as well. And then the truant officer, although not identified by name, we know that he was a part of the case study and was assigned to Carl. The what is this case study about? It's about Golden Oak High School and their attendance issues. We know that 85% of the students have 10 or more absences at this point, and that something needs to be done about that. We also can tell because of the case study that there is now a strong correlation between the attendance records and the academic success of students. Where and when? Already stated this, Golden Oaks High School. It's outside of a metropolitan area. We know when it was discussed was at the beginning of the year. So that's when Mr. Rhodes and Dr. Newman were able to talk and about the attendance issues and the policies already in place. And then we know that the data was then looked at closer after the first semester. So after those attendance records were submitted for the first semester, and that was around Christmas time. The how and the when, there's really two things for how and when, but school policies are not being upheld by one or multiple staff members. And then the other thing would be that parents are actually supporting their kids' choices. So they're actually supporting them not being at school. To start with, the ethical and legal issues that present itself in this case are parents patri, which is the law about doing what's best for the kids. And in this case, them not attending school is what is not best for them. School and staff are obligated to report certain things like truancy, which we also see that be a part of this case study. There's a breach in contract because every teacher needs to uphold the policies of their school and district. We also see kind of an ethical issue, but parents and non-guardians are excusing their students, and then students are the ones that are being harmed by these actions. So kind of tenfold there. And another issue, I included the non-guardians because you are not legally allowed to be able to write those kind of notes for somebody who is not legally your student or your child. The other kind of ethical issue that I foresaw in this was the inconsistency of how these cases were handled. So the 5 that were outlined. For example, Carl was the only student taking vocational classes or the most likely to take an alternative route after high school. However, he was the only one that had a truancy officer assigned to him. And then John was favored by the athletic director. And so we see those two examples of inconsistency in this policy. To synthesize what is really going on here would be that attendance rates at Golden Oak High School have dropped drastically in the last several years because of the negligence of various types of stakeholders. Moreover, to see how Principal Rhodes needs to address the issue, we must first look at the facts of the case, known or unknown. So first, let's start with the people. Here's what we know. Karen is in 11th grade. She's missing random days. Recently married before this school year began. Her parents requested a meeting with the guidance counselor, and we know that the guidance counselor failed to contact the parents. And then we also know that in 10th grade, 9th and 10th grade, that she did very well in school, and in fact, in 10th grade was inducted into the National Honor Society at the school. Carl is in 10th grade. He is the one that takes vocational classes in the afternoon and regular classes in the morning. He is assigned a truant officer. And we know from that truancy officer and their notes that the family actually supports this behavior. John is an 11th grader. He's the quarterback. He was actually injured, so he has to attend PD a couple of days a week during school hours, And most importantly, almost a note, the athletic director actually wrote him a note excusing him from the afternoons on Friday during the season. Tyrone is in 10th grade. He may miss 2 weeks for educational travel. And then we do have letters on file from both of his parents excusing him for these absences, which we know that they're not allowed to take absences for personal reasons. And then we also know that these notes were accepted by his homeroom teacher. Christina is a 9th grader. She has church-related absences, and she is the one that actually had a note from her minister excusing her, which is, again, one of those issues that we are not supposed to see in this case. And we know that she missed 3 sets of 4 days. So all in all, kind of in conclusion, knowing all of this about each one of these individuals, we can see that multiple adults failed to uphold the school policy or state regulations. So that's kind of a common factor over all of these. And the attendance rates, Mr. Rhodes has realized, are actually correlating with those students' academic success. So next, after the people, we need to look at the place in the program. So the place, Golden Oaks High School, 965 students, primarily middle-income families, although there are some that are in the poverty level, and there are some very wealthy families at the school as well. We know that it's outside a metropolitan area, and we know that it used to be, or the demographics that are changing would be Asian and Hispanic families are now increasing in the school. So the case study actually outlined it as the school becoming more diverse because of that. The program that we know of, or what we know of the program, is that it's 9th through 12th grade. The absence policy that is in place includes illness, death of family member, inclement weather, or administrator approval. We know that there is a National Honor Society, so you could infer that they actually do push academic success at the school. We also know that they offer vocational classes, or a vocational school that has vocational classes. And lastly, for the program, we know that they have 11 different team sports and 31 additional extracurricular activities. So a lot for these kids to do. With this in mind, we must review and prioritize the information. First thing to remember is the stakeholders. So asking ourselves these questions about the stakeholders. Could this situation or decision to solve the issue be damaging to them? Yes. So I put parents, involved school staff, and students on both of these questions. It could be damaging to them, this situation, but for very different reasons. It could also be damaging to them depending on what the solution is for this issue. Have all of the stakeholders been consulted? I stated that Mr. Rhodes has been made aware of the issue via Dr. Newman, so they both know about it. And then, do I know enough to make a decision, or do I need to learn more? I do not have all of the information yet. In fact, I even included on this slide that the piece of information that I'm really missing, and that I keep coming back to when I was reading this case study, is what made this veteran staff change. Because they used to get awards for high attendance rates, but obviously somewhere along the line that did change. So that's the key piece of information that I'm missing. I'm not sure why teachers that have been there for 10 plus years aren't doing what they used to do. For those reasons, we need to consider some possible solutions to this situation. So option 1, clearly don't do anything. Option 2, or the most liberal option, there's twofold here, basically dish out consequences for everybody involved that are in the wrong. So the first thing would be to immediately enforce the attendance policy, so penalize the students who have missed 5 or more excused absences, which will relate in a lot of students failing several classes. And then also fire those staff that have not upheld the policy, because they are in the wrong as well. Option 3 is to do something about it and not just go drastic with it. but would be to start enforcing the policies. Pretty simple, right? And I even included my first step, honestly, would be a staff meeting. Consequently, there are pros and cons to each option. So option 1, don't do anything. That would be less work. So that's kind of good. But there will be consequences. So the school can get in trouble legally because they're not following through with their policy or with the law that's in place. And then also student success will continue to decrease. Those are just 2 examples of how there will be consequences down the line if they don't take action. Option 2, which was the liberal option, there will be blowback on the school. I could foresee Rhodes being fired because you can't just penalize everybody involved. You will get pushback from all sides. The staff will push back, the parents will push back, students will push back. You will lose people with this option. They would also have to replace all of the teachers, but that would also never happen because the school board would never approve that because there would be lack of documentation. Because if Rhodes is the first year principal, he wouldn't have kept records of them breaking the school policy until the year that he got there. Option 3, a con is that it would be a lot of work to honestly do something about it and to start this ball in motion. You would also need to communicate to all stakeholders, and there will be some pushback because this is going to be something that has to change. Based on this information, I believe the best option is option 3, to start enforcing the school's policy. So in conclusion, following option 3, here's the path that I would take. Number 1, collect the data on correlation between attendance and academic success. So use that data to really show people why this policy is important. 2, prepare a presentation using data found or policies policies in place, and the questions to ask the staff. So then come up with the questions that you need the answers to before you can move forward. Number 3, all relevant staff meetings. So this doesn't include everybody, but I would think the teachers, the counselor, athletic director, and administration, all of the people that have been involved in this case need to be at this meeting. And there is where you would come up with a plan on how to address stakeholders. I included this as my third step because I believe that without the actual buy-in of the staff and the opinion that they bring to it, you're not going to get that far because they are going to be the ones that are primarily upholding this policy. So you need their buy-in and their input. The next one would be a student assembly informing the whole student body. So then the school, this actual students need to be notified that this will start happening so that they know that if they then break the policy, they will have a consequence. They've been notified. Same thing with the parents. The parents will be notified of the policy. If they break that policy, then they also know what the consequences are. And then last but not least, it kind of seems simple, but obviously last step is to enforce the policy. So everybody go forth and be able to uphold what they previously talked about. Lastly, through this presentation, I was able to address the following standards, and I will talk more about this in my reflection. See my reflection for more information. And very lastly, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, said by Wayne Gretzky. So basically this just encapsulates that kids need to be in school because if they're not in school, they're not getting the information and they're missing their shot.